On the season while the Saints dropped to 1-1. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox.
Hafa this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Pick up dinner for you and the family at Chili's. We got you covered with a variety of delicious family platter options, like our fajita trio, Cajun chicken pasta, or our crispy chicken crispers. Or order off our new menu for you and a friend and indulge in our tasty burgers, tacos, and ribs. Get your Chili's favorites in a way that works for you. Call 648-7377 or WhatsApp 929-7376 for curbside pickup orders. Or get delivery with Good to Go. Chili's, you can still savor the moments at home.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Every day on Tall Tales, tune in at 1600, and you're going to hear a respectful reading of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, along with a plethora of other good sounds, words, thoughts, and ideas. That's the very essence of Tall Tales. A lot of good conservative thinking, constitutionalism, adherence to the Bill of Rights, a little bit of humor now and then, a whole lot of sarcasm, some
Plethora.
Yes, a plethora of sarcasm, and some facetiousness, which is always marked by because one time I was describing a situation and I used a very facetious manner in describing it. And one of the tailgaters out there in the international radio listening audience thought I was speaking literally. So because my facetiousness sometimes is so subtle.
It comes with a straight face.
It comes with a straight face, even though I don't work at GURA. I'm not the executive director of GURA, and I never want to be the executive director of GURA, notwithstanding my straight face. So as I go into these facetious routines with a straight face, you will oftentimes hear, and that tells you, hey, Bob's being his facetious self again. Moving right along to Zemi Ikotny. And as usual, today the Daily News is not running a local editorial board. Surprise, surprise. They're running something from the USA Today editorial board, and I'm going to spend a little time with it, probably as much as I can being facetious, because it's another chapter in the voluminous book called The Hagiography of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. hagiography, the study of people for sainthood. And I never held Ruth Bader Ginsburg's judicial approach, as it were her judicial philosophy, in very high regard. And I'd have to say that she made it to the Supreme Court. That's certainly noteworthy. But I don't think she has that great a record. She is, of course, the darling of the feminist movement. The left loves her because she didn't have an anti-abortion bone in her body. Now, I mentioned yesterday that the decision that I really agreed with her on was her dissent in Bush versus Gore. I'm one of those rare animals that would judge the Supreme Court based on the quality of the reasoning they use to reach a ratio decidendi, as opposed to looking at the decision and saying, yeah, I really like the decision, and then work backwards from there. So she called Bush versus Gore just right, and maybe tomorrow I'll read some excerpts from her dissent. But of course, the Gannett News Service being way over on the left, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg being the closest thing that we'll ever see to a Jewish saint, the Gannett News Service has to, of course, really bow down and engage in the hagiography, as it were. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had fought off cancer for so long that she had seemingly entered a permanent state of frail yet indomitable. So when the end came on Friday, at the start of both the Jewish New Year and early voting in the presidential election, it jolted a nation already traumatized by disease, disaster, and division. Courageous, brilliant, and cultural icon in her 9th decade, the nation's second female Supreme Court justice was a singular feature. Like the late Thurgood Marshall, who successfully argued the landmark Brown v. Board of Education case before his time on the High Court, her greatest contributions might have been what she did prior to donning her robes. More than any other person, Ginsburg was responsible for establishing what now seems obvious and unassailable, but was not for more than a century, that the protections of the 14th Amendment apply to gender discrimination. Now, I would read that sex discrimination, because I don't think she really got into the gender game. That came too late in her life. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg was arguing about sex discrimination, it was much easier than it is nowadays, because when she made her arguments before various courts, there were only 2 sexes. I don't know how many we have now. She took to this mission with considerable first-hand experience. After graduating the top of her class at Columbia in 1959, Ginsburg was passed over for a Supreme Court clerkship, and after a federal court clerkship, could not get serious consideration from prestigious law firms. Well, in 1959, that's kind of the way it was. An earlier program, I mentioned that in 1974, we broke the glass ceiling here with our first female lawyer on Guam, Janet Healy Weeks. Moving on here, working in the 1970s with the American Civil Liberties Union, she did not try to bring one big case, but rather to chip away at the issue with a series of narrower, winnable cases that would add up to a comprehensive argument. One of her most ingenious moves was to find cases involving men to show that discrimination on the basis of sex could cut both ways. I'm just going to mention an autobiographical experience here. Growing up in southern Wisconsin, about 20 miles from the Illinois state line, every young man in his early 20s understood that bars in Illinois in the 1950s and early 1960s would serve a man who was 21 years old, but a female only need be 18 years old. Yeah.
Interesting.
So in South Beloit, Illinois, which was just across the state line from Beloit, Wisconsin, and in Richmond, Illinois, which was just across the line from Genoa City, Wisconsin, there were taverns that were set up to capitalize on this blatant discrimination. So needless to say, the Wisconsin guys flocked to Illinois, as did 18-year-old girls from Wisconsin. I don't know how long that lasted. By the time, it was still going strong by the time I left the States. It's over now, of course. But that would have been the kind of thing that Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have zeroed in on, obvious sexual discrimination. Okay, then there's a little bit more about Ruth Bader Ginsburg here. And there's one thing that I have to mention here, and that is that even the left was unmerciful in her criticism for not retiring during the presidency of Barack Obama. Because had she retired during the presidency of Barack Obama, she would have been replaced by someone who would have carried on her same ultra-left legacy. In fact, suspicions are that a retiring Supreme Court justice has a certain amount of leverage with the president as to who their replacement will be. Mr. President, you know, I've really been thinking about retiring, but I think I'll stick around in the court for a few more presidents. I was just wondering, though, if I were to retire, who would you appoint to fill my vacancy? That's kind of how it works. So even Mother Jones was unmercifully critical of her for not retiring during the time of President Obama. And then, of course, USA Today here has a nice tribute for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but they can't resist at the end of the article to say that shortly after Ginsburg's death was announced, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell declared that the president, he and fellow Republicans said in early 2016 to block a highly qualified nominee from then President Obama to the High Court, that an upcoming election should decide the matter, would not be followed this time around. The Senate, McConnell vowed, would vote on President Trump's nominee to fill the vacancy left by Ginsburg's death. Never mind that the presidential election was barely a month and a half away. McConnell's power play promotes cynicism and exudes hypocrisy. He and the nation would benefit by following the lead of Ginsburg, who made Americans proud of government institutions and the law. She didn't make me proud of anything. She's so pro-abortion that I'm ashamed of the Supreme Court. But leave it to USA Today. You know, never let the opportunity to make a political smear, even if you have to do it in what's supposed to be a tribute to someone that you say you admire. Classic USA Today. All right, let's go on to the Post. Post, not exactly a rouser today. Early voter turnout offers hope. In this pandemic, there are many reasons why many Guam residents are staying home, aside from the governor's current stay-at-home order. As our Wuhan virus cases continue to grow, and as we see more Guam lives lost, 34 as of last weekend, a lot of people are staying home, etc. What perhaps more people are finally getting the stay-at-home message. What many residents did go out for was to cast their votes early for the general election. Over the weekend, when the Guam Election Commission started accepting early in-office voters ahead of the November 3 election day, about 350 residents showed up to cast their votes. Maria Kotla, also known as Maria Pangilinan, GEC executive director, said there were some cancellations due to the rain, etc. And on with the same thing. Pangilinan said she's encouraged by the public's response to expanded early voting processes provided in the law, etc. Well, okay. So people took advantage of the early voting process, and this is supposed to be good news. I'm not exactly going to go out on the field during the big halftime show and become a cheerleader. I take a little different view of voting, and I take a little different view of early voting. My view of voting is this. I would hope, it would be my desire that people who go to the polls knowing what it is that they're voting for as opposed to who they are voting for, that they have some idea of what the current issues are that are besetting or plaguing our island, and that their votes are kind of knowing and intelligent with respect to that particular set of issues. The fact that that we make it really easy for someone who doesn't even know the difference between a Democrat and a Republican to go in and scribble on the paper doesn't make me very happy. I know I'm not supposed to say that. I know conventional wisdom should require me to say, we've got an election coming up here, and everyone votes who they want to see in office. So please go and vote. Vote whoever you want to vote for, but vote. Let's get out the vote. Yeah, I can't get too excited about that. I can't say I'm going to try to discourage anybody. And then on the subject of early voting, I don't want to vote until election day, because a lot of things can happen between now and election day. My old Aunt Florence, one of my sources of wisdom, was fond of saying, "Yeah, Bob, there's many a slip twixt cup and lip." Yeah.
That sounded exactly like her, too.
Yeah, I can do a really good Aunt Florence. Yeah. So, different issues will occur. People will take varying positions, and someone who I might think right now, I may very well vote for this. I'm thinking of a candidate. I may very well vote for them, but yes, they might do something that causes me to say, I'm not going to vote for them. Or the other way around, I'm thinking, I don't think another candidate, it comes into my mind, and I think, I'm not going to vote for them. And then getting up close to the election, they take on a new initiative, and I think that's the kind of person that I would like to see in the legislature. So I'm going to vote for them. So I just don't see putting my bet on the table during the third quarter of the game. It just doesn't seem to appeal to me. Wuhan virus, no Wuhan virus, convenience, etc. To me, voting is an extremely important thing that I feel a duty to do in our democratic society, and I want to get the maximum benefit out of my vote, which means I want to make sure that I wait until the end so that I can cast a knowing and intelligent vote. Now, I know that guy who sits over there in the lazy boy saying something like, "Oh, Bob, you're going to cast a knowing and intelligent vote? Well, I'd like to see that. That'll be the first time." All right, so our Carl is on the phone here. Good timing, our Carl. We've got to take a break, and then I'm going to come back. This will give you the opportunity to take off your trench coat, hang up your snap brim hat, to put your secret briefcase away, the secret briefcase that has all of the weapons and gadgets and and devices in it. Okay, short break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Time is running out. The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Call 645-2020 to respond before September 30. Our call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is your chance to influence the decisions made for the next 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon, or call 646-1463.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So here we are, back again, Tall Tales, and on the telephone, on the line right now, waiting in the green room, is the most dangerous man in the room. You could recognize him by his trench coat and his snap-brim hat and his briefcase, in which he carries all kinds of codes and secret devices. Good afternoon, R. Carroll.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. I'd just like to issue a statement. If you read anything about some spectacular explosions that happened in Kazakhstan, in the next couple of days, I'm not saying I had anything to do with it. But then again, I'm not saying I didn't have anything to do with it.
That's our Carl for you.
Yeah, I can't reveal too much, but, if it comes out, who knows?
Okay, our Carl, thanks for the tip.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in regarding the business of choosing candidates. What happened with the Juan Pet-10 pay raise smash and grab, that was really an eye-opener for me. I formerly had voted straight-line Republican for as far back as I could remember, but that was an eye-opener when I saw how many Republicans were involved in that, to my shame. And so I took Ken Leon Guerrero's list into the voting booth, and I didn't vote for a single one of them. And this last election, I only voted for 5. And this election, it's even slimmer than that. But I'm starting to approach voting like an employer. I've tried to see what I can of resumes. I looked at one in particular, Vince Borja's resume, and I've heard Frenchie's comments about him. And looking at Vince's online resume, I was impressed. I think he shows signs of someone that has ambition. I just need to find a little bit more out about where he is in his political views. Is he is he pro business growth? Is he for low taxes? That kind of thing. But the only I really don't care for promises. I just shut my ears. I'm not interested in anybody's promises. 20 spectacular promises and $1 will get you a cup of coffee. They're worthless to me.
You must buy your coffee at a discount somewhere, Carl.
Yeah, I use the cheap stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've just become very cynical about promises. They mean little to me, to nothing. The only thing I have to judge a candidate on is what have they done in the past. Someone who isn't an achiever as evidenced in his career, in his past, isn't just magically going to become an achiever and a high performer just by being elected. That's just, to me, that's not going to happen. So the number one thing I look for now is I look for evidence in their history. What have they actually done? That means much more than any fancy promises. Much, much more. And where they are politically, in their political views as far as economic growth, controlling government growth, that kind of thing. I think those are the two main indicators I look for. But, maybe you can tell me, am I out of line? That's what I've kind of evolved into at this point, where I am.
I look to see what a person says his particular policy orientations are. As an example, these people, I remember going to the little candidate Chautauqua that was held the last election at Micronesia Mall. If you remember that, Ray did
I like
some,
that.
Yeah, Ray did some interviews, and I talked to some of the candidates, and I said, "Are you pro or anti-abortion?" And I might have, for some of them, especially the Democrats, I might have said, "When was your last dancing lesson?"
It was almost like speed dating.
Well, because when I asked the question, I saw a good exercise in tap dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, abortion, yeah. I'm 100% against abortion. I just think abortion is the worst possible thing. I don't like abortion at all. But, I'm a man, and I can't see telling a woman what to do with her body. But I'm really anti-abortion. Yeah, well, that's great. So, is it hard to eat with that forked tongue? So I'm looking for opportunities for someone to not throw candidates softballs. Well, tell me, Mr. Candidate, what motivated you to run for office? I wanted to help the people. Oh, that's so admirable. Have you helped the people in the past? Well, yes, I have. I've done a lot of things helping the people. I have 25 years of government service helping the people. No hardball questions at all. No questions that would pin a candidate down to where he's coming from, because, if you gauge what a senator does, a senator really doesn't do anything. If you're talking about someone who's running for attorney general, the attorney general has a department to run. He's deeply involved obviously with the law. And there are certain duties and responsibilities that he cannot evade. But for a senator, you could be sworn in as a senator on the day of the inauguration and never show up after that. Still draw your check, and unless some industrious citizens group got a recall petition going for you, nothing would happen. You don't have to do a thing. Because there really are no duties that fall on a senator, like fall on, say, the public auditor, the attorney general, or the governor. So what senators do, and a lot of them don't understand this, what senators do is they vote. They say aye or nay when a roll is called. When the roll is called for a confirmation on a bill, they vote. And I'm concerned with how a senator is going to vote if he should be, a person will vote if he's going to become a senator. So track record is important because you can oftentimes tell what a person's orientation is by the way he's spent his life up until the time he's become a candidate. But that political orientation is the kind of thing that tends to, as they say, ring my bell, Carl. I'm looking for people who will stay engaged, who will know exactly or as best as possible what's going on in the community, who's doing what to whom, why it's happening, whether or not legislation is necessary. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So you could have someone who had a great track record, perhaps as a businessman, and you ask him, well, what is your position on abortion? And he says, well, I don't know. I'm a man. I don't much care one way or the other. He's not going to get my vote. You see what I mean, Carl? Are you still there, Carl?
Could have dropped because I know it dropped earlier when he first started.
Yeah, I guess maybe he didn't have enough patience to hang on for my soliloquy.
He got called to another.
He
another
probably
mission.
got called out on a secret mission. Okay, let's see. I've got somebody else in the green room here. Curbside Jack, Curbside Jack, formerly known as Drive-Through Jack. Hello, Curbside Jack.
I'm at the drive-thru actually at Kentucky Fried Chicken and Daddy Does, so I'm almost up to the window. Placed my order already.
You know, Jack. Yesterday, when we finally got on the air, I mentioned that the withdrawal symptoms were so serious over the weekend that to just get me over the hump, on Sunday, I WhatsApped Jose and I said, Jose, would you please go over to the drive-thru at Wendy's and give me a call? And he did, and it got me over. So how are you, Jack?
I'm doing fine, better than most, not as well as some. but anyways, I caught because I heard you say speaking about what it takes to go and vote. And if you recall, a while back I mentioned that there were studies that were done that in inclement weather, and you had to go vote, the most likely people to go out and vote are conservatives. Inclement weather, traffic or delays, or it becomes cumbersome, the most likely people that go out and vote are conservatives. That has not changed for decades. So now we're moving into the realm of how to make it easier to vote. Easier for who?
Mm-hmm.
Easier for Democrats and liberals, because they don't take that much time to go out and do, like you say, the research or whatever. It doesn't it isn't in their wheelhouse. So the thing about here in Guam, and I heard Ron McNish talk about this, is that Republicans and Democrats, we choose them, but the problem is that there's a lack of understanding of ideology here. Yeah, thank you. There's my card and my license.
What did you say, Jack?
So,
yes. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't hear you. What did you say?
There's a hot wing combo.
Oh,
So,
you're at the drive-through, Jack, and that was the waitress who was talking to you, taking your order, huh?
Yes. Taking my order and doing it with great care, and I'm convinced there's no coronavirus attached to this one, right?
This is
Thank
real
you, Jen.
talk. This is real talk radio, Jack.
But anyways, like I mentioned before, like I said,
Is that a chicken? Is there a chicken in the drive-through, Jack, or is that the chicken in your car?
Well, it's the 6-piece, and the reason why I went here is I want to make sure that the Colonel Sanders statue is still there in his plantation uniform, and nobody has tried to take him down.
Yeah.
So I'm a customer here, but I'm also a defender of a statue.
Yeah, those Black Lives Matter, if they were around, they'd take that statue down in a heartbeat.
Not on my watch.
Okay, Jack.
I don't even think they bothered. I mean, that's how fake this BLM thing is, because all the statues at KFC are still up. They're doing well, and they're wearing their masks and gloves if you go to into some of them. But anyways, like I mentioned before, like Ron McNish mentioned that here in Guam, we go between Democrats and Republicans, and I don't think really it's because that we switch or anything. It's just a basic lack of understanding of ideology. And if only the Democrats knew how they started, who's the party of slavery, who emancipated, but nobody wants to go down that route. Nobody wants to visit the history. They go back, what is it now, 400 years? To say that America was started on slavery and built on the backs of slaves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting ridiculous here, Bob. And you're right. There used to be that you had core issues that you asked the candidate, and those core issues were abortion, gun rights, health care, public education. And, these issues, they just wash over it. They, drop the abortion thing like it doesn't matter anymore. They drop the gun rights thing like it doesn't matter anymore. It matters in the rural areas. It matters, in places in small communities that, we call Americana, that, have roots, historical roots, family roots. And the problem here, I think, that we have here is that we carry, their new philosopher now for the millennial is Cardi B. And I saw her battle of Candace Owens. And, I didn't know. I was saying the word wrong all my life, but it's politics. Not politics, but politics.
Is that how Cardi B says it? Politics?
Yeah. She says she's an expert on politics.
She must be really informed, huh?
So anyways, I guess that's where things went wrong. But I try to be a good Catholic. But sometimes, in this day and age, it's pretty hard to be. I try to temper my response, less sarcasm. But again, it's hard when it's just right there.
Hey, Jack, lay off on the sarcasm. That's my job.
Yeah, you built up a reputation on the sarcasm.
Hey, by the way, Jack, I got a post on Facebook here. One of the posters said, order something for everybody on Facebook. And Pam Duvall says she'd like a chicken sandwich. So,
I'm sorry for the audience, but I just left the drive-thru and I just got the food for me. But next time, I'll promise to take orders from the Facebook audience. But anyways, yeah. I heard you mentioned that Chris Duenas is running again.
Yes.
And that he apologized that he would never introduce a bill that without a public hearing. Is that correct?
He would never go forward on a bill without a public hearing. Yep.
Yeah.
Said
So
he learned his lesson.
I'm like with you, about issues. I don't think. I mean, we are a republic. We have representatives. I don't think everything should go for a public hearing. I think some things on its face you say no to. You just outright say no to. And one of them is pay raises. You don't need a public hearing for pay raises. You look out on your audience, you see you got 30% unemployment, you see people struggling day and day in the private sector. And what gives you, the idea that those working people will have time to go down to a public hearing? That's why they elected you. They elected you because you have the same values. And one of those values is keeping taxes low, reducing the scope of government, limited government. It just amazes me that the answer that would come out of him, well, I'll make sure that no, some things don't need a public hearing. Something you got a no stamp. No, nay, me. Whatever language you want to put on, you just say no to. That the public, asking for a raise, that's an immediate no for a Republican. Raising taxes, that's an immediate no for a Republican. But I don't know. Maybe
I'm still stuck on public hearings, Jack. Not this virtual substitute, but real public hearings, because I like to go to public hearings with my well-worded testimony crammed full of various kinds of sarcasm and kind of lay the message out for the senators to understand. But, hey, Jack, I'll let you get back to your dinner because it's time to take a break. I'm glad
supper.
I'm glad your supper. Sorry, I'm glad you called us from the drive-thru. So nice talking to you, Jack.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Respond by September 30, 2020 to help our island receive the federal funding it needs for essential services. We only receive this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Contact the call center at 645-2020 to complete your interview today. Together, we can make a difference.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you're wearing a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific grows but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby.
Open the Point app.
Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app, available on Google Play or go to thepoint.gu. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Agotna location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home.
So we just entertained drive-through Jack here a minute ago, who was so considerate that even when he was ordering his supper, Jack and I are probably the only two people on the island that eat supper at this hour of the day. He took the time to he took the time to call Tall Tales, and we had a little chat with the clerk at Kentucky Fried, which added a lot of spice to the program. But Jack says, we don't need no stinking public hearing when it comes to pay raises and raising taxes. So let's just examine that for a moment. Where in the legislative process would the no occur, and who would be the person who got to say no? And the first place that the no can be exercised would be at the Rules Committee. The way the standing rules are set up now, a bill is introduced, it's sent to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee decides to which committee, if any, the bill should be referred. So if the Rules Committee decided, we're going to follow the Jack rule, we're not going to send this bill for a pay raise to the host of Tall Tales for all of his good service, we're not going to send that to any committee. That would be the no. The next opportunity would be that if the Rules Committee sends it to a committee chairman has a tremendous amount of power under our system. The committee chairman decides whether or not that bill will have a public hearing. And as we all know, no public hearing, no floor action, unless you bring yourself within one of the 492 exceptions that Tina brings to her job to excuse the necessity for the public hearing because it's something she thinks really is really dangerous. And then after there is a public hearing, then the next step is that the committee chairman has to see to it that a committee report is prepared. No committee report, no bill, no. That is the no there, because once the committee report is circulated and it goes to the members of the committee, and unless a majority of the members of the committee either vote do pass or report out only, the bill goes nowhere. So there are lots of places along the line to say no. The public will not be happy with that kind of disposition of a bill, because that bill that everybody hates might have one person who says, yeah, I'd really like to see that bill pass. And when that bill gets hung up somewhere within the legislature, that person is going to grouse and complain and say, this ain't democracy. They won't even hear. They won't even put that bill on the floor. All I want is a simple up or down vote. So this brings us, Jack, back to my analysis of correct results and fair procedures. So let's think hypothetically. Let's think that there is some way that we could always come up with exactly the correct result, whether it's legislation or court decisions or what, that due to some complicated algorithms and some really powerful computers, we could always come up with the exact correct result. So we have correct results on the other hand, and then on this hand, we have apparently fair procedures, so that when the public watches these things happen, the public says, oh yeah, that looks pretty fair to me. Those apparently fair procedures. My theory is that apparently fair procedures will have a much greater degree of public acceptability than absolutely correct results. And if we had a situation where bills would be stillborn because they didn't match up to a certain political philosophy, like the Republicans' idea, no, watch my lips, no more taxes, or no salary increases, people would say, you know, I kind of, at least I would say, I kind of like the result, but I sure don't like the procedure that was used to get to the result. And the reason that people don't like that is because they think, well, maybe next time I will be the person that's caught up in this maelstrom where there are not apparently fair procedures. So I think in order for our government to be successful, it must always engage in apparently fair procedures. And I would point out that this whole kerfuffle about quarantine is a classic example. I think if you were able to corner most people and explain to them where we are with the Wuhan virus, how contagious it is, how to stop the contagion, etc., and then we had a procedure so that when people came in, they weren't herded around like a bunch of cattle, but we followed the law and we followed our procedures, I suspect that the acceptability would be much higher than it is now, because people would look at it and say, yeah, I don't want to be quarantined either, but at least it's fair. That's my thesis, Jack. I'm glad I got that over with before. Well, maybe I hope I didn't spoil your supper. You said you're going to leave the drive-thru to go for supper. Well, I've got our Carl back. Our Carl, I thought you lost patience after I got into about the third chapter of my long soliloquy.
No, the call just dropped. I could hear you guys just fine, but you couldn't hear me. I don't know what happened.
I'd like to rig that up with some of my other callers, but go on, Carl.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish up my thought. It won't take that long. You know, one thing I appreciated about Ronald Reagan is that when he came in to, when he ran for president, he'd been actually thinking about that for a long time, about national issues. Of course, he was California governor for a while. But, I think he had three big issues, wasn't it? The military, the economy or taxes, and I think there was one other. He had a big three. And I think, unfortunately, there's some people that come into being a senator, and it's just kind of a something on the resume, you know. Oh, he was a senator, you know, or she was a senator. That's pretty impressive. But they haven't really been thinking about issues that they really want to deal with, like the hospital, like our school system, you know, and our public safety system, all these huge things. It was kind of nice if they just didn't one day decide, you know, I think I'll run for senator and, you know, not give thought as to, well, what am I wanting to achieve when I get in there? You know, it's like what you were talking about with the ethics committee, you know, the kind of thing that I'd like to see, and I'm sure you would like to see, is people that come into office and as soon as they're sworn in, they're chomping at the bit. They're pawing at the ground. They want to go. We've only got 2 years. Let's get stuff done. And I think one way to do that is the part-time legislature. They just don't have a lot of time to waste. You know, so I think it just naturally compresses the time and forces them to be more selective about what they're dealing with.
There was a guy named Robert Townsend who took over Avis, and he came up with the slogan, "We're only number 2. We try harder." I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that. He also wrote a slim book that was very popular.
Yes, and I read that book when it came out, and I was looking around for it. I can't find it in my vast library, but one of the things that I remember from that book, and I'll paraphrase here, he said, "Too little is almost always better than too much. Too little requires you to think and imagine and stretch and make the best use of your resources. Too much just allows you to get sloppy." And I think that's a good way to deal with the government. Going back to Ronald Reagan for a second, if I might, Carl, I still have a Ronald Reagan joke after all these years, if I might have your leave to tell it.
Sure.
So Ronald Reagan and Jerry Ford, of course, were running against one another. And at the time, you know, Ronald Reagan was superannuated. And when he ran against Fritz Mondale, he came up with one of his best lines when a interviewer asked him, "Well, President Reagan, you know, you're kind of getting up there in years. How is that going to work with you against a very young, much younger Walter Mondale?" And Ronald Reagan said, "I'm going to play fair. I'm not going to use my opponent's youth and inexperience against him."
I remember that. That was a classic line.
But there was some talk about whether or not Ronald Reagan was dyeing his hair because he didn't have a gray hair on his head. So when the question came to Gerald Ford defended Ronald Reagan. He said, "No, he's not gray. He's just prematurely orange." End of my Ronald Reagan stories, Carl.
I'll just leave with one thought. That's about Donald Trump. You know, he gets a lot of criticism. Obviously, he's kind of a lightning rod, but he'd been thinking about these issues for a long time. He was talking about what a threat China was for many years when people thought he was just nuts. He'd been warning us about China for a long time. So I believe he was looking every election season. He tends to trust his gut. And I picture him being like a surfer out on the water.
He must be able to invest an awful lot of trust there, then, Carl.
But you know, I think every presidential election season he would, you know, he was always absorbing information, and he was thinking, you know, does this, you know, what does my gut tell me? Is this the right time to run? I think the other times it just didn't feel right, and this time it felt right, you know. And his gut seems to have served him pretty well. He's got a long list of achievements despite 24/7, 365 resistance.
Let's take a break for that big halftime show, okay, Carl?
All right. Well, I'll keep listening.
Thank you.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Choosing a nominee. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
It will be a woman.
President Trump at a campaign rally outside Dayton, Ohio last evening, saying he will nominate a replacement Supreme Court justice Friday or Saturday this week, in defiance of Democrats demanding the nomination wait until after the election. But the president pointing out Joe Biden won't say whom he would pick.
The president said Biden is not releasing his justice nominees because it would make him, quote, unelectable.
They don't want to show the judges because the only ones that he can put in are far left radicals. And if he does something even toward left of center, which would be acceptable, I guess, we have no choice. If he did that, he would lose the left. So he's going to have to put in radicals. So he doesn't want to show who his judges are.
We spoke to Trump supporters at the rally who told us they are highly motivated because of this Supreme Court vacancy and what it could mean for the pro-life cause.
Fox's Brian Yanis. Joe Biden campaigning Monday in Wisconsin, going back to the issue of the president's taxes.
Do you have any doubt that the reason we haven't seen Trump's tax returns is because they want to know what he paid? They've only seen 4 Trump tax returns in the last 45 years. And I don't think there's been any in the last, ever since he's been running for president.
Biden again also criticized the president's coronavirus response. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson is preparing to announce new restrictions to stop a surge in coronavirus cases. One of his cabinet members says people will be urged to work from home if they can, but schools should stay open. Britain's seeing a spike recently in both reported infections and hospitalizations from the virus. Wall Street now on a 4-day losing streak. Asian stock markets closing Tuesday mixed. Dow futures trading about 100 points lower. America is listening to Fox News.
Time is running out. The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Call 645-2020 to respond before September 30. Our call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is your chance to influence the decisions made for the next 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you're wearing a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific grows but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
2 Virginia residents arrested Monday walking on railroad tracks behind an airport outside Toledo, Ohio. Police say they were carrying shovels, a pitchfork, and a backpack with a gun and ammunition in it. The pair charged with making terroristic threats. President Trump was campaigning outside Toledo last night as well. Beta has made landfall on the central Texas coastline, not a hurricane, but as a tropical storm.
Tropical storm force winds will certainly be a potential will certainly be in the forecast for those areas. And then in terms of rainfall, similarly, those same areas from the middle to upper Texas coast, where we're expecting, again, anywhere from 5 to as high as locally 15 inches of rain.
That's Rich Otto, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. Beta is the 9th named storm to hit the U.S. mainland this storm season. That ties a record set 104 years ago. Today marks the start of Small Business Week in the U.S.
The U.S. Small Business Administration is hosting a 3-day virtual conference starting today. The pandemic's been especially hard on small businesses. A U.S. Census Bureau Small Business Pulse survey done last month found nearly 80% experienced either a moderate or large negative effect to business due to the pandemic. While a first round of stimulus through PPP did help some businesses, many have said it was not enough or sustainable, and another round of stimulus stalled in Congress. Thousands of businesses have closed, though. A Yelp study found from March through July 10th, 72,000 businesses permanently closed, with restaurants leading the way. The city with the most closures by midsummer was Los Angeles. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Kansas City, Missouri, the police department tweeting they're stunned at the callousness that left a 5-year-old dead and 2 adults wounded. They'd been sitting in a car Monday afternoon when someone opened fire on them. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglonia from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
You know, that halftime show gets better every single day. I really groove on that halftime show. The marching band, the cheerleaders, the synchronized card section up in the stands, and that barrage of cannon fire at the end. I suspect that every single one of our tailgaters out there in our international radio listening audience is as enthusiastic about the halftime show as I am. Isn't that correct, Chris?
Absolutely, Your Honor, Senator, Honorable Marine, my favorite talk show host, and as our Fred says, I guess, RAG.
Yeah, right. Leave it to our Fred, right?
Leave it to our Fred. You know, I was listening to Jack, and, you know, I think it's not going to be... I'm sure I'm not stumping for his vote here. You know, we've had our differences, and I respect him immensely, but I disagree with this position, and I agree with what you were discussing, Bob. And let me once again say, the biggest regret I had in that vote was the issue with regard to not having the public hearing. And I think we're going down that path. And the dangerous discussion that Jack brings out on, you know, any one party, whether it be the Democratic Party saying if a Republican were to introduce a bill trying to promote better opportunities for pro-life, which you know I am a pro-life individual and always have been on the record. wouldn't have. I wouldn't dance with you on that issue had you met me in a forum.
Okay.
But if a bill were introduced, say for example, by a Republican in the minority, and this, I think that Jim Wallen can tell you how difficult that can be sometimes. And a committee just says no public hearing, and that would be for the opposite reason. That would be supporting that Democrats committee's position that we're just going to make sure we do everything, move heaven and earth to not hear this bill, and just say no because we're Democrats and we believe that we need to, in fact, we need to have. It's so urgent that we need to actually have doctors here on Guam that would kill babies, and so I think that's a very dangerous position, and that's why it's a lesson that I learned very deeply, and regardless of whatever supporting circumstances and whatever the Speaker of the Legislature would do, you should fight like hell to make sure that there's always a public hearing, because it's the public. Like you said, Bob, when the public elects senators, they other than recall, they have no recourse after that. But when they go to a public hearing, as I've seen you many times do, and as I have sat before many public hearings and have either confirmed my position or changed my mind on issues, it is the very public hearing, the last chance that the public has to scrutinize and ensure that the legislature, when it deliberates a decision on a yes or a no, and not a quarterback pass, that the public has been heard.
Well, I can't say that I disagree with anything you mentioned, Chris. You're right on target. And here's another dimension that by the leadership of the legislature making sure that every bill that is introduced at least gets a public hearing. Not only is it good government, but it's also good politics. In the 27th Guam legislature, Ben Pangilinan and Lou had things locked up so tight that the Republicans, they would let us in the session hall, but that was about it.
Yeah.
But we made the argument that by doing that, what they're doing is short-circuiting about half the people of Guam, the ones that voted for the members of the Republican minority. People that voted for us, in effect, weren't getting their money's worth. So in the 28th, we went the other way around. I think the rule was every bill had to have a public hearing in 90 days. And should the leadership of the legislature fall down, the member himself could use the public hearing room and conduct his own public hearing. So we didn't play that game, and it worked politically. It works very well because people like to think that their government is working for them as opposed to against them.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, with the public hearing process, I think also it becomes obvious when bills are introduced and whether or not you have a great amount of folks gravitating toward the legislature. I mean, of course, the gravity of the bill, will determine sometimes the turnout. But I think also sometimes it goes to show the frivolity of a lot of bills that are introduced. And if you have a bill that you've introduced that you think is going to change the world, and not even one person would decide to come down and have a kind or not so kind word to say about it, I think that shows. I mean, I haven't checked on this particular legislature, but I know that when I was tracking several legislatures back, and even as a senator, I believe the total bills that I introduced of the 2 terms that I was in was less than one per month. I think my total was somewhere around 30 for both terms. And in both of those terms, I believe the introduction was over 500 bills and over 200 some voted on and passed or otherwise. But I mean, I just think that also has an element to the worthiness of what you introduced.
True enough, Chris. True enough.
And why I'm supporting as well a part-time legislature. I believe that it really with that situation, you're going to have a lot less bill introduction. You're going to concentrate on the business of the legislature, and I think that you're going to see a situation whereby you're going to have a lot more higher quality legislation introduced, and less bills, and I think that you're going to have much more public participation. But once again, I can't emphasize the fact that I completely disagree at all the reading levels that you enumerated there, Senator, from the introduction, the first reading, all the way till if a bill actually makes it to the floor, and especially when a bill is sent down that has not been publicly heard. That is, doesn't matter whether you're Republican or a Democrat, you should always make sure that public input is heard and the bill is heard. Because it's a dangerous precedent to go down the road of saying, I am this party, and automatically, if a pro-life bill comes into this legislature that would help a young person or any person make a decision that might change their mind on saving that child's life, that bill better be heard.
Okay, Chris, you're right on point as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Bob. Have a great day. Enjoying the show.
Appreciate the call, Chris. Okay, let's see. I've got Supper Jack on. Supper Jack, formerly known as Drive-Through Jack, also known as Curbside Jack. You're kind of a jack of all trades, aren't you, Jack?
And master of none. So I need to emphasize to Chris is that the sin wasn't that there was no public hearing. The sin was you voted yes. That was the sin. All right? Forget, that lieutenant governor signed it. That was a bad strategy on his part. Yes, the governor was off island, but let's get things straight. That was a strategy for him to win the next election, a feel-good strategy for public employees, and he signed that bill. He signed that bill too. A lot of people signed that bill that ought, the word is ought not to. So the sin wasn't that there was no public hearing. The sin was you put your signature on it. And if I can't express that on how egregious that is, then, I'm lost at it. But I did vote for you, Chris. I did vote for you. I did vote for you the last time. But if you can't see that, and as far as part-time legislature, I've already been down this road. We already have a part-time legislature. What good has it done? What good has this part-time legislature that we have has done? Public hearings. How many public hearings do we have on GMH? What good has it done? You are a representative. I hired you. I voted for you to do the right thing, not to come back to me every nook and cranny, because I believe in limited government. I believe in representative government. I believe that I hired you. I voted for you to do what was right. You don't need my thing. I voted you to be the watchdog. I voted you to do the rein-ins. And so, for once, the sin wasn't that there wasn't a public hearing. The sin was you put your signature on it. And then the lieutenant governor put his signature on it.
Well, Jack, if you step back and look at it, of course, I can only, I'm going to call on this secret group that seems to know everything. It's called Tall-Anon. Have you ever...
Nice wordplay.
Yeah, so I got this message from Tall-Anon way back when, and Tall-Anon said that the speaker and the acting governor cooked this all up before the session ever started. And this was all a well-orchestrated plan to get in there, pass that bill in an hour, get the acting governor to sign it, so that the governor himself would have cover. I didn't do it. I see nothing. I know nothing. The lieutenant governor do it. So that this may have all been part of Jack. Yeah, this may have all been a well-orchestrated scheme, and every senator need not have been in it, because the essential aspect of greed would bring people in who weren't part of the conspiracy. So when Chris was talking here, Chris was talking about a generality. You were talking about a specific. Chris was saying that as a generality, I'm not ever going to vote on anything when there's no public hearing. He's not trying to diminish the sin of voting in favor of the salary smash and grab. That wasn't his angle. His angle was that he would never do that again. And then his secondary point was that by having public hearings, you tend to be able to head off these kinds of things. Had that bill gone to a public hearing like it should have, I would bet you dollars to donuts it would have never seen the light of day, because the hate and discontent that would have shown up at that public hearing and the bad media coverage would have discouraged anybody from thinking that he could get away with it. But I think the mindset was, well, we'll do it, we'll get the money, there'll be a really bad kerfuffle for 2 or 3 weeks, and then people will forget about it. But the thing that they didn't consider were a few things like social media, activists like Andrew Bainham and Ken, and the fact that the people are not anywhere near as forgiving about the government now as they were in those days. So that's kind of the way I look at the whole thing,
Okay,
Chris.
so all right, let me put to rest the conspiracy theory, and I'll prove it once and for all that conspiracy theory is false. The governor wasn't up for re-election.
Conspiracy theories are never, Jack, conspiracy theories are by definition never false. That's why they're conspiracy theories.
So the governor wasn't up for re-election. The governor was on his way out of office. The only person that can benefit is the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor and those that voted for the bill. So, yeah, I'm still pissed off because we still have the 6% GRT. I'm still pissed off because they're still trying to figure a way to get back the tax relief that President Trump has given us. I'm still pissed off because the quality of goods have gone, the cost of goods have gone up and the quality has gone down. There's a lot of things I'm angry at, but it's nothing personal to Chris. It's just that, when I vote for somebody, I'm like you, but I vote for them because they're supposed to represent my interests as a voter. And when I put a mark on it, I said, this guy's not only pro-life, this guy's going to keep taxes low, this guy's going to watch my back when it comes to cost. And when they sign their name on that dotted line, it's like being stabbed in a foxhole when you're trying to defend your home.
Well, I think a lot of people felt that way about the smash and grab, and you saw that 7 senators paid the price for it, Jack. Jack, I got our Fred on the line.
Right, Bob. Okay.
Good talking to you. And here we have our Fred. Good afternoon, our Fred.
RAG, good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing fine, Fred.
I gotta say, I admire the passion that drive-through curbside takeout Jack has brought today to the show. It's awesome.
He gets cranked up sometimes, doesn't he, our Fred?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's good. The people that need to hear it, they need to feel his passion today and all the other days. All this back and forth on the right thing to do, public hearings, what's right, allocation of money. One ingredient, if politicians just had knowing that they represent the people, are elected by the people, the people's money, taxpayers, all that stuff. One ingredient, if we just thought of being elected into office, when they say they care for the people of Guam, or they care for any group of people that in any country when politicians talk, conscience, a lack of conscience, that's the missing ingredient.
The left has done away with conscience, Fred. It's a...
Well, that's... Oh, well, no, they shouldn't. Well, no, we are actually promoting it, and if we say they're done with it. Conscience.
You listen to their rhetoric, and religion is something that must be avoided at all costs, must be kept out of the public square in every single instance, that there's no more right and wrong, good and bad, good and evil. So if you don't have those things, then a conscience really has nothing to do. Your conscience is that little voice. I think your conscience is a cousin of that little person inside the refrigerator that turns the light off and on when you open the door. Because your conscience is that little man inside your head.
That little.
Yeah, so that when you're tempted to do something, your conscience says, no, that's not right. Don't do that, right? But
and the conscience has to reflect the best interest of the people, of the masses, not just a certain group of people, everybody. And in Guam, if there's 175,000 people, then it has to reflect, the conscience has to reflect the best for the 175,000 people, from what they do, from giving raises or how they allocate funds and where they put it and what's going on, from quarantining and how they're hurting the people, the businesses, even taking care of COVID-19 patients and the spread of the virus. They have to look at all angles, all aspects. We can't just look at one area and neglect everything else. And that goes for all these secret meetings or no public hearings. And conscience, they were elected for the benefit of the people. Politicians have to remember that. They might forget that through the course. They say it's a dirty game. But it doesn't have to be. If we just bring back humanity and conscience, they got to go to bed every night. They have to sleep with it. They have to know what they did was the right for the people. So that's what I want to say today. If that one word, the left or the right, everyone, all the politicians can just add. Look at what's going on in Belarus. Look at what's going on in Russia and so forth and everywhere else. Conscience is what's lacking.
Well, having listened to your words of wisdom today, Fred, I have only one thing to say, one word to say.
Well, I got to hear this.
Amen.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So
our Fred's homily.
I hope all they hear this. And again, your Dunning-Kruger list is being worked on, so don't worry.
I'm afraid we got too many people working on it, Fred. There's
more now?
Yeah.
It's becoming a big prize.
They just don't know it.
Yeah, a lot of people are working on getting on the list. They just don't know that they're doing that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll be coming out.
Okay, Fred. Good talking to you.
All right, RAG. Thank you.
Okay, let's break for that 7th inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Pick up dinner for you and the family at Chili's. We got you covered with a variety of delicious family platter options, like our fajita trio, Cajun chicken pasta, or our crispy chicken crispers. Or order off our new menu for you and a friend and indulge in our tasty burgers, tacos, and ribs. Get your Chili's favorites in a way that works for you. Call 648-7377 or WhatsApp 929-7376 for curbside pickup orders. Or get delivery with Good to Go. Chili's, you can still savor the moments at home.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Here we are, Wrigley Field, Chicago, the 7th inning stretch, and finally get to the card here after the 7th inning stretch. And this is what this is what I got on the card. I've got it's too much work to say the whole name. So I've got by proxy cancels action pack. Yeah. Senator Kelly Marsh Titano by proxy cancels action pack. I've got Rory versus We're All in This Together. I've got Joe San Augustine versus Lou Gura and Pinocchio. I've got more of the daily, the PDN versus the news. You remember that stem-winding story they ran yesterday about the severability clause in the governor's executive order. I got more of that. I've got Tall Tales versus the Supreme Court of the United States. Crozier versus Mertz. Crozier is the former commanding officer of the Theodore Roosevelt. I've got Democrats versus self-determination. Justice Ginsburg versus the unborn, Barr versus BLM, Trump versus critical race theory, Clayton Duval versus Greenwater, and Hawaii versus God's-an-Arrow, and Tim Rohr waiting in the green room. Good afternoon, Tim.
Bob, my connection's kind of bad, so I don't know how well you can hear me. It's just
I can't hear you at all, Tim.
You can't hear me at all?
I can't hear you at all.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Let me try to keep moving around here. I did it again. I turned on your show, and I couldn't stand it. I had to call. You couldn't stand it? You hate the show that much? No, I couldn't keep from dialing the point and saying stuff every time I turn on your show. Let me help you with that then. You turned on the show and the content was so provocative that you couldn't resist picking up a phone and joining the international radio listening audience, right? Yes, I've been trying to control myself. I'm just not able, at all. So I called anyway. It's just kind of the same thing, and you'll have to. Your listening audience will have to forgive me, but when I listen to your show, I keep hearing really good people appealing to some sort of a standard of right and wrong, that kind of a thing, consciousness, common sense, all that kind of stuff. I just don't know why do you think that anymore? Where is that? Do we have any example of that in society today? I mean, other than Tall Tales? Well, there's that, and I guess maybe that's why they call you, because there's just nothing else. But, I'll just say this, I don't know if you've ever read the book Art of War. Sun Tzu? Written by Sun Tzu, there you go, yeah. Well, bottom line is, if you don't name the enemy, you're never going to win. That's the first rule of war. Basically, is you got to name the enemy, and we're not naming the enemy. The enemy is like really, really bad people. Period. Bad people, evil people who want to destroy everything about our country, our nation, our island. There's really, really bad people, and there's bad. Somebody once said, we can both be wrong, but we can't both be right. And there's, so much truth to that. Everybody can be wrong, but not everybody can be right. There's only one right. There's a lot of wrongs, and there's only one right. And I don't know. I just want to throw that out there and challenge callers in to stop using words like it's unfortunate, it's disappointing, those kinds of things, and just say, this is really bad. This is evil stuff. This is bad stuff, and maybe we'll get somewhere. Because we're appealing to something that it's other than on your show does not exist. There's no example of it. People saying common sense. I mean, forget it. It's gone.
If you've ever heard the read-in to Tall Tales, Tim, you'll know that I derogate common sense by saying common sense is what tells you that the world is flat, that iron ships will never float, and that heavier than air objects will never fly. So common sense doesn't get you very far. You got to have some theoretical knowledge if you're going to progress.
There you go, and it begins by naming the enemy. For heavier than air objects to fly, they have to name the enemy. It's called gravity, and you figure out what do we have to do to overcome gravity and ships and everything else. It really is just theoretical, and we have to start looking at our enemies that way. But we can't even do that until we name the enemy, and who is trying to destroy everything that we believe in and stand for, whatever. And this is just a small challenge, but I don't really have any other suggestion other than let's begin with that. Maybe people can actually start naming names and tick what they say. Kicking down doors, taking names instead of just griping about things, which is fine. I understand why people do it, but.
Referring to a spade as opposed to a pointed entrenching tool, correct?
Exactly. It really is. I would, it's your show, and I know, but when I do turn it on, I can't listen for more than 5 minutes when I hear somebody appealing to common sense and good reason and stuff. When I'm thinking that doesn't exist. But I'll let you straighten people out. That's just my my observation. I'll let you take care of that. I got enough troubles of my own.
Okay, Tim. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Bob. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I've mentioned this before. As a matter of fact, when I was talking with our Fred, I said this idea of conscience. The left has abolished conscience. There's no more good and bad, right and wrong, good and evil. It's
lots of feelings.
Yeah, it's feelings. It's all situational. So, but that doesn't change the way things really are. There really is good and evil, even if people don't want to recognize the fact that what is evil is evil. And I hope in my own small way that I help bring that recognition to people's consciousness, not their conscience, but their consciousness. Okay, so let me pick up the first item on the card here. And this is by proxy versus the, as you were, not versus, but cancels action pack. Cancels as that we now understand that word in the 21st century. And this is an article that ran in the Daily News today. The last group the people of Guam needs to put their support behind is an organization that unabashedly supports the desecration and clearing of our cultural heritage sites and burial grounds. Okay, so there's an order. There might be 150 groups, but number 150 is a group that puts their support behind, unabashedly supports desecration and clearing of our cultural heritage sites and burial grounds. Recently, Guam Action Pack, comprised of organizations that have consistently placed their own pockets before cultural and environmental preservation endorsed candidates that it feels would push Guam in a positive direction. Now, we have to cancel Guam Action Pact out. That's what she's telling us. That's the last group. It's a shame to see the Guam Action Pact interfere in our political affairs when they have not once advocated for indigenous rights. Oh, where's Greta Thunberg now that we really need her?
How dare you?
How dare they? Yeah, not once advocated for indigenous rights, the very cornerstone of our community values and the basis of Inifresi. Wow. This lady really lays it on thick. Well, I should have probably put out a warning. Anybody who is a member of Action Pack, caution, fasten your seatbelts.
Put your boots on.
Yeah, you're going to feel, and get your box of Kleenex handy because you're going to feel really bad when I finish this. Over the last few years, as the buildup has moved forward, our island has seen the loss of culturally significant and irreplaceable ancient settlements that provide our community with a deeper connection to our ancient past and to our ancestors. Very recently, our community lost 3 cultural sites eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. Why is that important? National Register? Wouldn't that be the national government? National Register of Historical Places as part of Project J017 to construct the new Marine base. The largest of the 3 sites cleared was more than 12 football fields in size. The public comment period for these projects was held after these highly significant sites were already cleared. They found some pottery shards out there. Now, it's amazing that piece of ground out there on Route 3, I can tell you that for 57 years, nobody paid any attention to it at all. I never saw anybody out there. I didn't see archaeologists out there doing digs or cultural preservationists doing anything with it at all. But anyhow, the proponent here, Maria Hernandez, goes on to say, we heard nothing from these groups that supposedly care about island affairs. So here's the cancellation point. If you don't care about the stuff that she cares about, you have no business speaking. You have no business interfering in political affairs. You must be canceled. Now, you may be very interested in a half dozen other items, but if you're not interested in her issues, then you count for absolutely nothing. Members of Guam Action Pact groups flocked to public hearings to showcase their unwavering support for harmful buildup projects at the expense of our heritage. For years, community requests to pause construction with adverse impacts to cultural and environmental resources were ignored by the Department of Defense. Ignored. I see stories in the paper all the time about the record of decision and the EIS and the media and the cultural preservation officer and all that stuff. The fact that someone won't do what you want them to do doesn't mean you're being ignored. It just means you're not getting your own way. We have only been provided lip service about all the positive preservation efforts they are doing to mitigate the harm being caused. There is no preservation in destruction. So this is Gloria Hernandez, and the reason that I say this is Senator Kelly Marsh Titano by proxy is guess where Ms. Hernandez.
Maria.
Yeah, Maria Hernandez. Guess where she works?
Mm-hmm.
She's on the payroll over there at Senator Taitano. So this is a politically wise thing for Senator Taitano to do, because she can pander to the separatists at the same time, not be identified with them, hoping that the business community is going to say, well, maybe I'll vote for this Kelly Marsh. Maybe I'll vote for Kelly Marsh. She's a senator. Well, what about her activities as far as the separatist movement is concerned? Oh, I didn't know she was in that. Yeah.
I found this opinion very interesting in that, to me, it was like a bait and switch. I thought they were going to talk about the Political Action Committee decision and how they went about it, but they talked nothing about that.
Absolutely.
It was complete, but that's not what you're talking about.
And because you're not talking about the issues that we think are important, it's that old one, silence is violence. Because you're not talking about the things that we want to talk about. We don't care what you want to talk about. Okay, so anyhow, that's Maria Hernandez on the payroll over at Kelly Marsh Taitano. And here's the last sentence. Cultural genocide. Cultural genocide is occurring at a rapid pace. And Guam Action PAC has made it abundantly clear that they are just fine and dandy with the horrific loss of these special parts of our heritage. We must vote for protectors of our heritage and environment if we want a better future for our children. Now, I have the release that Action PAC put out, and they want 5 things. They want to decrease the size of local government. They are improving the transparency in all levels of government. They support the military buildup, support part-time legislature, roll back the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%, and to mount an attack on cultural so that we can have cultural genocide. Yeah. So
I suggest Maria create her own action PAC.
Well, she has her own action PAC. It's called the Office of Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano. And the separatist movement, so she can go out and work with the separatist movement, working for a Guam that's independent of this horrible United States. But in order to do that, she feels it necessary to cancel the Guam Action PAC. So, if you're on the left, going back to what Tim says, first thing you got to know is who's the enemy. Well, the enemy is the left. Whether it's in the mainland or here or where it is, this is the left. We don't care about anything except our issues. And if you're not with us on our issues, then you shouldn't interfere. You shouldn't interfere in our political affairs. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch here, and down the home stretch, I've got Chris Duenas back for his second ride on the Ferris wheel, and R. Keith. So I'm going to take R. Keith first, and then we'll give Chris another ride on the Ferris wheel.
Have you responded to the 2020 Census of Guam? If not, time is running out. Call 645-2020 before September 30 to make sure you and your family are counted in the 2020 census. Our call center hours are Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. We only get this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby.
Open the Point app.
Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on Google Play or go to thepoint.gu.
$5 footlong. Pile high with veggies. They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch of another exciting educational issue of Tall Tales. And I've got Senator Chris Duenas in the green room and R. Keith, but since Chris has already had one ride on the Ferris wheel, I'm going to go straight to R. Keith and then to you, Chris. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. The past couple of days have been rather revealing, or rather the leadership, the Democratic leadership of the legislature has become, well, they've come out of the closet, as it were, and revealed themselves to be leftist reactionaries of the same ilk that you see causing the riots on the mainland. They like to cloak themselves in the separatist movement or preserve our culture movement, but it doesn't take long to see through the coded language and the selection of their enemies. One can always judge a person by the enemies that they keep. That they are indeed the same as the identity politics, Black Lives Matter, woke leftists that infest the mainland. And I'd love to get on the phone and have a one-on-one, or have someone put the question to either one of them and say, okay, so what are your goals here? Do you really want a Chamorro-only island? Is that what you're getting at? Because that certainly seems to be the impression that you're giving. What about those of us of other races who have chosen Guam as our home? Do we not count? Do we not matter? Are our voices to be silenced? And in regards to this this particular column where she attacks the military and goes off on some tangent about cultural genocide and other silliness, or rather not silliness, but hyperbole. There was a column the other day where I think it was Tina Munoz Barnes that came out with the 4 goals of the Democrat Party, and as a matter of fact, I called Ray's show when he read them out, and I indicated sort of the same thing. They're clearly picking enemies so as to deflect from their own absolutely astonishingly miserable record. They can't discuss what they've done or the positives that they've done or how they've improved the lives of everyone on Guam in their tenure. So therefore, they pick an enemy to deflect people's anger. You saw it in the 1930s in Germany. You see it, every dictatorship, every power-hungry politician does the same thing. They can't run on their own record, so therefore they're going to deflect and misdirect people to other topics. And it's just hit a nerve with me this afternoon. Perhaps I had a bad day, but there you have it.
All right, I think you got it, Keith. I don't think they're fooling you too much, Keith.
No.
Perhaps not as much as they're fooling themselves.
That's a real good question too. In fact, I do wonder sometimes if some of this crowd really believes the pablum or the vomit that they spew up, or whether it's all just some show to appeal to a certain demographic. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, you have a nice day, Bob.
Good talk.
And I appreciate you putting up with my little rant there.
Oh, it's always good to talk to you, Keith. I'm glad you called. Thanks again. Okay, so Chris Duenas mounting the Ferris wheel for the second ride to the top. Go for it, Chris.
Thank you, Senator, once again. And I'm simply going to say this to my friend Jack. I'm not asking for absolution. I'm asking for forgiveness. Going into the issue of and that discussion, the reason why I called again, Bob, was to remind also Jack and other friends of mine of my record. I was the public safety chairman of the Civilian Military Task Force that probably was the signature accomplishment of Governor Camacho. both in the late Camacho Moreland and the Camacho Cruz administration, which had questions about Build-Up 1. And when Build-Up 1 turned into Build-Up 2, it wasn't just the questions from Guam. It was the military, and we'll talk about this more in future shows, Bob, but it was the Marines and the entire military reviewing their posture in this region. There's been build-ups in Australia. There's been build-ups all around the region when they said, we're going to have to plant the flag deeper in different locations to be able to understand the geopolitical, geographical issues of keeping our nation secure. I was the public safety chairman. I can tell you of 3 major accomplishments. I'm not going to do that here right now under Camacho Moreland, Camacho Cruz. Going into the legislature, there was more than enough, and there has been more than enough voices. This is the democratic process, and this is Chris Duenas who loves the democratic process. The 4 pillars announced by Undersecretary Works that really, really set the tone for how Guam was going to manage Build-Up 2 came because of the fact that we had a full vetting of the democratic process, a full setup to make sure the NEPA process was done right, a full setup to make sure that we have a setup where we have a SHPO and others who have jurisdiction over how we handle sensitive resources. I am a Chamorro. My father has embedded in me how much this island means to our people and to all of us who live here. But I'm also a practical individual who understands exactly what our nation's security and Guam's security and our economic benefit means to our veterans, our people, and our democratic process, and all of those who love Guam and who love America. I am proud to be an American. I am proud to be a Chamorro. And I'll tell you what, I will always take process over politics. And I was proud as a senator, as an individual, a cabinet member. Mind you, Bob, I was the director of Department of Youth Affairs. I was tapped by the governor because I had great relationships with both local government and military representatives to represent public safety for the people of Guam. Let me tell you, those meetings and the volumes of information that was taken under the Civilian Military Task Force that government agencies have right now, probably collecting dust on their shelves, that was all done by the government of Guam to make sure that we could manage this buildup, to make sure it was good for the people of Guam and good for our national security. And you know what? I get offended sometimes, and that's one of the reasons why I think I was endorsed by the Action Pact. I get offended when people try to take a banner and push your culture against what you believe in terms of taking care of your people. I think it's wrong. I understand the principles. I have no problem with activists. I have no problem with activism. But let's get to the bottom line and let's get to facts. And let's use the process, because it was the process that went from Build-Up 1 to Build-Up 2. And it was the process that led to the 4 pillars, which set up a net negative for military footprint on Guam and several others, which I'll talk to you about in future shows.
But Chris, isn't it easier just to rely on demagoguery and emotion rather than a factual presentation, a rational, logical, factual presentation?
And you'll never get that from me, Bob. I've met with senators. I've met with U.S. senators. I've met with congressmen. I've met with high-ranking military officials. I met with high-ranking military officials that even wanted to invest in the Chamorro Land Trust program to put infrastructure when we were talking about Paget. But some people will have none of it because all they care about is exactly that issue that you talk about, Bob. Demagoguery, put you in a box, here you sit, and sit over there in that corner. And I will have none of it. Regardless, win or lose, I will be a proud Guamanian, proud Chamorro, proud American that says, I believe in our economy, I believe in our safety, I believe in our security, and I believe in a system that can be fair to all.
And you'll also be a tailgater, Chris. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay, so another exciting episode of Tall Tales comes to an end. We'll see you all tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Promising a pick within days. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump resolute about a Supreme Court nomination now 42 days before the election.
Little time to nominate, confirm, and seat a Supreme Court justice, and even less time to do the last-minute check and